Welcome to the chapter 262 review of Jujutsu Kaisen. You guys know it's a 7-page chapter, so obviously nothing mind-blowing happened. It seems as if we've really gotten half of a chapter, although people are claiming that this is the entire chapter. Like, this summarizes everything that was supposed to be in 262. Whatever the case, it doesn't really matter. We got what we got now, so let's just enjoy the 3-week break. And with that said, let's get into the chapter. So we get this beautiful double page of GOJO and Sukuna just back to back. And obviously it's not GOJO, it's Yuta since it has the stitches on his forehead. But it looks fire, man. It don't matter. If you want to believe it's GOJO, just erase the stitches off his forehead and boom, there we go. It's GOJO and Sukuna. Something I want people to notice is that Yuta is just looking for it, right? Like, he don't know what's going on. But Sukuna has his head tilted a little bit and his eyes look toward the audience. I don't know what this can mean, but it's something I peeped and I think it just makes the cover even more fire. Like, there's something Sukuna sees that Yuta doesn't, but that's the best guess I got. Now, once we actually get into the chapter, we see both Yuta and Sukuna activate their domain expansions. And for people who were asking about Yuji and Todo, well, here's your answer. The two remain outside of the domain as Yuta and Sukuna just enter it. And I don't think we're gonna get Yuji's reaction in this chapter either. Pretty sure Gege's trying to save that for later. Anyway, we finally see Yuta within the domain. It's stated that the countermeasure Gojo Satoru worked out against Sukuna's domain was a shrunken barrier. For approximately 3 minutes, it's possible to withstand the effects of Malevolent Shrine beating down on the barrier from outside the domain. We then get into Yuta's head, as he says that doing switch training with Gojo has allowed him to elevate his barrier techniques. Taking Sukuna's fatigue into account, he should be able to stall the domain for 3 minutes, just like Gojo did. And here we go, we got the second person that Yuta did switch training with, which was Gojo, and the first one was obviously Yuji. It's then said that Sukuna, on the other hand, was able to rid himself of the previously imposed 99-second time limit by restricting the shrine's effective range to only the outline of Okotsu's domain. And there we go, guys, all you had to do was wait 3 chapters for an explanation on Sukuna's binding vow. But of course, there will still be people complaining, so there's nothing Gege can do about that. And if you don't get what was going on here, it's that Sukuna has removed the 99-second time limit of his domain expansion. Now it's much longer, but instead of it being the size of Shinjuku, it's now the size of Yuta's domain. And we can assume that Sukuna's domain expansion is 3 minutes now, judging from this statement here. And as Sukuna and Yuta clash, they both express their goals behind clashing with one another. Yuta's like, within these 3 minutes, I'll be able to damage Sukuna to a point where he can no longer maintain his barrier. And Sukuna is saying, I don't need 3 minutes. I'll be able to destroy the Unlimited Void and then expand my effective range. This time, I'll be sure to slaughter them all. If I had to take a shot at what's gonna happen here, I do think Yuta will be able to damage Sukuna to where he can't use his domain for that long, but once Yuta's out the equation, Sukuna will still be able to use his domain expansion and use it on Yuji only for a little bit, not long, probably like 15 seconds type beat to do a lot of damage to Yuji, but it ain't gonna finish the job, and Sukuna is gonna be burnt out after. And then from there on, we'll be reaching the climax of Yuji versus Sukuna. I do think this is the most probable way. Both sides kind of get a W in terms of Yuta and Sukuna within this domain clash, and it's just a result that nobody can predict. That's usually how Jujutsu Kaisen goes. As the battle begins within the domain, Yuta uses blue, and look at how he uses it, right? He uses both of his hands, and Sukuna just takes advantage of the blue, accelerating himself toward Yuta, grabbing his fist as Yuta tries to punch him, and countering with a punch to his face. Obviously, switch training just isn't going to be enough for Yuta to be able to use blue and infinity as a whole with as much finesse as Gojo can. I mean, we don't even see Gojo use blue with both of his hands that many times, and when he was using it inside of the domain clash with Sukuna, he would only use it with one hand and a swipe of his finger. And to only reinforce my point, Yuta states he bypassed infinity with domain amplification, so he's able to activate it while using domain expansion. And Sukuna would think to himself, naturally, what occurred within a domain your little crows can even enter wouldn't be known by you all. So the fact that Yuta's caught off guard by this displays that he doesn't even have all Gojo's memories, or at least the most recent ones if he had to make a guess, because again, Gojo witnessed Sukuna doing all this before. And Sukuna actually is aware of the fact that Yuta does not have all of Gojo's memories because he knows that Yuta has no idea of what happened within the domain. Sukuna knows what Kenjaku's ability really is, or at least all the details of it if he was able to take advantage of this fact. Being honest, Yuta just does not seem as powerful as we think he would be, and on top of this, he doesn't have all of his other abilities. He's fighting in a completely different style and a more powerful body, granted, but the circumstances aren't good for him. Then again, he was in worse circumstances before hopping in this body, as his body was cut in half, Gojo's body was put together again. I mean, this was the best route for him to take, even if he would have done better in his original body. But maybe I'm counting out Yuta too early and he has more to show us. As we leave the domain, we see Rika crying, and she's holding on to Yuta's original dead body, and she cries Yuta. As the chapter note says, Rika fully manifested, however, and Yuta's eyes are closed. So the chapter ends here, and there are a couple things I want to talk about in terms of the chapter and something I changed my mind on. First and most importantly, Gojo could come back, not like himself in a way, but he can do what Geto did to Kenjaku during the Shibuya incident. Some people are not going to like that I'm saying this, but hear me out. In chapter 91 of Jujutsu Kaisen, Kenjaku and Mahito are speaking about their techniques and how their techniques affect their perception. Kenjaku says, "You theorize that the soul came before the body, but the body is the soul and the soul is the body." This is in response to Geto taking over for a brief second while he was talking to Gojo. As he continues, he says, "Otherwise, this phenomenon, or the fact that the host body's memories are retained, cannot be explained." Mahito says, "Does it have to be the same for everyone? Considering our curse techniques, you and I practically live in different worlds." And Kenjaku's like, "So techniques dictate our worlds, huh?" I like that. It's poetic. So from my perspective at least, this can mean two things for Yuta and Gojo's body. First and foremost, since Yuta is using Gojo's body with Kenjaku's curse technique, and it seems to be the only curse technique he has access to besides Gojo's, we can guess that Gojo's gonna do the same thing to Yuta that Geto did to Kenjaku. Now, would he try and fight Yuta over control of his body? Probably not, but he would probably take control of his own body to help Yuta use his techniques better, or just do something better than Yuta can, right? Just assist him. I can see this being a moment where it like turns the entire tides and allows Yuta to actually break Sukuna's domain and prevent him from using it. Now, as we know, there's also this other factor with the present time, modern time, Edo, different eras having different versions of curse techniques. And since Yuta is from the modern era and he's using Kenjaku's curse technique, although he copied it, it's possible that he got a different version of it. Something like Thin Icebreaker or Granite Blast are quite simple techniques. I don't think there could be a modern and past time version of it, but when it comes to Kenjaku's technique, it hasn't been revealed for a reason, so I do believe that there's something going on with this. Though you can make the counterpoint that again, Sukuna knows what's going on with Yuta's body and that he doesn't memorize everything Gojo did within the domain clashes with Sukuna, so it may be the same exact technique. Although it's an unreliable theory, I thought I'd bring it up because if what Kenjaku says about their curse techniques defining their reality or vice versa is true, Yuta and Kenjaku should have opposite techniques. Like, you know, these two couldn't be further away from one another, but who knows, I just thought I'd share the idea. Now, to move on to Yuji, it's very obvious that Yuji has some kind of reaction to what's going on with Gojo's body because Gege's hiding his face. We only see his back in this chapter, and we should see it in this chapter if it was going to be something we could just move past. I do think Yuji's going to be frustrated, upset, all the above. The story's leading up to Yuji having some kind of big reaction to this, although I don't think it's anything he's going to address right now because he obviously has Sukuna right in front of him. So I'm just going to end this review here. Obviously, we got to keep it quick for, you have 7 pages. There's not much I can talk about here. But I do want you guys to let me know what you think of Yuta's fate, like how this fight could go. Anything about the conclusion of this fight and Yuta's fate. I do want to see ideas about it because I think a lot of people have different perspectives on it. It's interesting to hear. With that said, peace out. I'll catch you on the next one. And of course, if you have anything you want me to cover, any ideas, just feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll probably see it. Thank you guys for watching as always. I always appreciate you. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.